we go. Okay, solving absolute value equations. So if we look at just something basic, like absolute value of x equals 5, what is absolute value even mean? Positive, yes. Why is it positive though? Does anyone know the actual definition? So absolute value is the distance from 0. So if I have 0 and I have 5, what's the distance from 0 to 5? What's the 5, right? The distance from 0 to 5 is 5. Okay, but I also have from negative 5 to 0, what is that distance? It's also 5. Okay, distance is positive. Pull it out. Okay, so what happens is if you have absolute values, you can have two solutions. Okay, because here I have 5, that distance is positive 5, but here I have negative 5. So really, x can equal 5 or x can equal negative 5. Okay? So you're going to get two solutions on absolute value equations. And that's what you have to remember to do, is do two solutions. Okay? Don't worry, we're going to do one. 2. So we're going to walk through the steps with this problem, and then we'll do some more examples. So I'm just going to do the steps off to the side right over here. So the first thing we want to do, isolate the absolute value. Isolate the absolute value. So what does that mean? You want to get the absolute value completely by itself on the left-hand side. So the absolute value is this whole thing. So how would I solve for the absolute value? What would you do first? Before the 2. Add 8. You can do the 2, but people just always forget that it goes to the 8 also. So let's do the 8 first. So then I have 2 absolute value of 6x equals 30. Now I'll divide by the 2. Divide by 2. So absolute value of 6x equals 15. So that's the first step. Sometimes you don't even have to do that. It's already done for you. Sometimes you have to do a lot to get just to that part. Okay, so step 2. We're going to make 2 equations. So this is how we get our 2 answers. This one up here that I did, where I had 5, we got positive 5 and negative 5. That's what I'm going to do with the 15. Okay, so I'm going to split it up. I get absolute value of 6x. Oh. No absolute values. Sorry. That was it. Just 6x equals 15. And then I also have 6x equals negative 15.
So why doesn't the 6x ever change?
Because we only want to change one thing or the other. So if I'm going to change the thing on the other side of the equal sign, the absolute value doesn't change. And so you just want to leave the absolute value part by itself. And the reason is because look at, let's see, like up here. When I put 5 in, out comes 5. When I put negative 5 in, out comes 5. It's always the same. So we leave that absolute value part the same. Then on the other side of the equal sign, that's where we get our positive and negative answers.
Okay, gotcha.
Alana, what was your question?
What'd you get for negative 15?
Okay, so look up here. When I did this basic one, I can have 2 answers for x. I could have 5. I could have negative 5. Now this one, there was nothing else to do. I was done. That was my answer. So in order to get my 2 answers, I'm going to do the same thing. 15, negative 15. I don't change what's inside the absolute value.
Oh.
Can I do that for every single?
Yes. And now let's solve for x. So I divide by 6. That's step 3 if you want to write it. Sorry. Solve both equations. So divide by 6. 2. And divide by 6 over here, x equals negative 5 over 2. Now, here's where I want you to use your calculator to check your answers. Okay, so when you're solving equations, there is no reason you should get a wrong answer because you can check your answers. And if it doesn't work, you can say, oh, wait, I did something wrong. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. I'll do 5 over 2 first. Go back to the original problem. So here's the original problem. And you put it in. 2 absolute value is under math. So over here, you can't see it. Can you see it? There it is. Press math and then arrow to the right. There's absolute value right there, the ABS. So I have 2 times, and then I put the 6 in. And I'm putting in for x 5 over 2. So if you want the fraction, the alpha y equals. And then I'll put 5 over 2. Minus 8. These two. Okay, so I'll do it again. 2. And then to get absolute value, I go math.
Wait, but we
Arrow to the right. And then press enter. Yes, and so then here it equals 22, so I know that that one worked. 5 over 2 worked.
So we just have to try both of the x's and see which one works?
They most likely will both work, or they both will not work.
Oh.
So I'll plug in the second one,
Wait, what if one works and one doesn't?
then I would go back and check your work.
Oh, okay.
So alpha y equals, and this time I have negative 5 over 2 minus 8, and I got 22 again. So I just put a little check mark so I know I went back, I plugged it in, and it works. But I mean this, because remember, look at my original problem. When I put all this in, did I get 22? Yes, so it works. Does anyone else need help putting in the calculator? Okay. So then here's step 4. If you want to write so you remember, check your solutions.
So how would you write out the answer?
Just like that. Well, actually, usually you put like an or in there because it's one or the other.
You just put it, that's it.
No.
Doesn't that mean more?
Yes, but only if you're doing interval notation. Okay, so let's do some more examples. Number 1. Yes, Blake.
So you know we have like the 6 weeks test?
Yes.
Is it still like replacing all those tests?
Yes.
Is that how you pass everything?
Isn't that so nice?
That really is.
I mean, that's not my rule. That's like, well, I don't know if the math department rule, but that's what they do. So.
I wish every
That's just
single
math.
Okay, so here's the problem. Absolute value of negative 9x equals 36. So the first step is the absolute value by itself. Yes, so then I don't have to worry about anything. I can go ahead and split it up. Okay, so I'm looking at the 36. I want one of them to be a positive 36, and I want one of them to be a negative 36. Notice I didn't change anything inside the absolute values.
Why?
Because that stays the same. So this stays the same. I changed this positive and negative. That's going to be my 2 solutions. How do I solve for x? Perfect. Divide by negative 9. X equals negative 4. Where did I hear that? Who said that? Okay.
I guess. I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where'd you get stuck at?
Well, I just thought that if it's all the numbers were like a negative, that it would come out positive.
Oh, you mean right here.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so because I have the x here, like if the x wasn't there, then this would just be a 9.
Okay.
Because I have an x, I can put a positive or a negative in, so it doesn't affect anything inside there. Okay, so, yeah, they should both work. Let's do that one more time so you know how to plug it back in. Math, arrow to the right, and then ADS. Make sure you know how to do that. Negative 9, sorry, what?
Can you repeat that again?
Yes. Math, can you see it or no? No. Math is right here, under alpha. Math, arrow 1 to the right, and negative 9, and I want to plug in, what was our first one, negative 4? Equals 36, so that works. And then the second one is a positive 4, and that equals 36 also. There's no reason not to take the time and do that. Do you need me to show you again?
Yeah, I was watching.
Math,
You go faster at it.
arrow to the right, number 1, enter.
Alright.
And then negative 9 times 4 equals 36. Okay?
What? Oh, no.
Number 2. 3 times absolute value of 2w minus 1 equals 21. Sorry, I grabbed you on silent. I know. I'm just putting it on silent so it doesn't buzz.
How do you do this?
You go to settings, sounds, and you say vibrate on silent off.
Oh, I just don't know.
I know, my son was sick last night, so that's why I have it on. In case they need me. Okay. How do I isolate the absolute value?
Don't you? -3.
Careful.
Overtime.
Divide by 3. So this is where, we didn't talk about this over here. On this first one we did, we divided by that 2. When they're next door neighbors, the 2 and the absolute value symbol, that's multiplying. Okay, so when I go to this one, 3 and the absolute value symbol, that's multiplication. Like, that will become mine. 3, that will become mine. Close it. You don't need it. Close it. No, you don't. So we're going to divide by 3. I'm serious. Both of you, put it away. Absolute value of 2w minus 1 equals 7. Now it's by itself, so what do we do?
Oh, it's now you make it.
You
cross out the
So
get
rid of the 1.
Before I can do that,
So you're gonna
Separate it?
yes, there we go, separate it.
Wait, why did you get rid of the 1 first?
Because it's inside the absolute value, so I want to separate it first. And now you can solve. So now solve for the w. So once everything inside the bars is by itself, then you split it up. Don't try to solve for anything until you have split it up, because else it messes up your second answer. Your first answer could be right, but your second one won't. So I'm going to add 1, which is 8, divide by 2, which is 4. I didn't write all that. Add 1, which is 8, divide by 2, which is 4. Yes.
I just got your message from YouTube that you posted an absolute value function video already.
That is pre-AP.
Oh, it is.
Well, I did equations yesterday and inequalities today, so it's probably my inequality one.
Yeah.
Okay, so then on this one, I'm going to add 1, which is negative 6, divide by 2, which is negative 3. Again, go back and check your answers in the original problem to see if they work.
This is Jen.
Good.
Read, just say check.
Exactly.
They should both work.
How do you put this in? You put
So let's
Oh,
check
it's
it.
equal to 7.
Yeah, to equal.
Yeah.
Well, I go back to the original
Like,
up here.
oh,
So we'll put a 3, and
Oh,
then.
I was looking at the 4, not the equal.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, they both work.
It was at 1/3.
Negative 3, and then 4.
Yeah, they both work.
Yeah, you should.
I got 6.
So let's do one that they don't work.
Man,
Wait, where'd you get 6? Did you put the 3 in front?
Yeah.
2 times 4 minus 1.
Wait, where'd you get the 4?
That's what I plugged in. I plugged in this one. I haven't plugged in this one yet.
so,
Yes.
Hey, so what if you don't go back to the top one? Can we just go back to that one that equals 7?
Yeah, the
And
only
it still
thing
equals
is,
that?
if you did something wrong up here, then yes, it works here. But if you mess up a step up here, when you go to plug it in, you see that it doesn't work, then you know you messed up. That's the only thing I worry about, is if you go back to this, maybe you divided by 3, then you did, like, if it was a 24 and I divided by 3, I wrote the wrong thing. That's why I always go back to the original.
But wait, why do you need to plug in stuff?
You mean the 4 and the negative 3?
Yeah.
So I'm just checking my answer. So when I plug in the 4, I had that one So I put into the W right here, I put the 4. So that worked. So then I'll plug in, I'll do it again with the -3. And I also get 21. Because most likely, I'm going to show you how you know it's no solution. But these, when you get 2 solutions, they should both work unless something special happens, and that's what I'm going to show you next. So if they don't work, then you know you did an error somewhere. You go back and check it.
Wait, when will you know if they don't?
That's what I'm going to do next on this one. Blatant question?
So we have to do all these steps every single time.
Oh my gosh.
If you want the correct answer and you want to get a 100, yes.
I think there's no shortcut.
No.
It's so long.
It's
Like
not that
2 different
This is
ways.
not long.
And
Go to college, take college math classes, and ding them like to me that yes, they're long. These are not long. I don't want to hear you complaining. It's not that long. Okay, what number are we on? 3? 4? 3? Okay, so let's look at a special one. If you put something into an absolute value, what comes out? If I put a 3 into an absolute value, what comes out? 3. If I put a -3 into an absolute value, what comes out? 3. If I put a -152, what comes out? 152. What do these answers have in common? They are all positive. So if you have an absolute value, you will always have a positive number. Can a positive ever equal a negative?
No.
No. So what is the answer to this entire problem?
Positive.
Nope.
No. Oh, not equal. Not solve.
So no solution.
Oh.
Okay, if you have an absolute value, I'll say it again. Every time you have an absolute value, whatever you put in here is always going to come out and be a positive. A positive number cannot equal a negative. That should be a key to you. If you see a negative, it's no solution.
So we don't even have to do any work.
Correct. Now, if you forget it's no solution, it's okay. Work it out. I'll show you what it looks like here. So if you work it out, it's the same thing. I split it up. I did a -1 and I did a +1. I solved. I got 1 and 2. When I plugged them back in, neither of them worked. That should be key to you to say, oh, that's right. Because this is a negative, it's no solution. Okay, so it's okay if you don't see it right away. You can still work it out and it will be no solution.
Why did you do that?
I did not work. Did I work it out?
Oh, Miss Love, this is what you did.
I know. I did that in the first period, and they're like, why didn't you work it out? So then on this period, I didn't work it out.
There we go.
No, it's not. It's
Okay,
it's
look.
negative, it's not a solution.
Let's do this.
Gosh.
If I give you this problem, what is the answer?
No solution.
No solution. If I give you this, what is the answer?
No solution.
No solution.
We get it.
No, we don't.
What
There's
about
no
this?
solutions.
Okay, so before you do anything, what's the first step on solving an equation?
Make separate.
Before that,
Isolate
isolate the absolute value, okay? What is in front of this right here? A -1. How do I get rid of it? Divide by -1. So now I have absolute value of 3x equals
solution.
-15, so it is no solution. Okay, so it's not always going to be nice and pretty like this. So it's only if the absolute value is isolated and that absolute value equals a negative, it is no solution. Okay, so if I had something, let's do, if I did something like this. Okay, look at this one right here. What do I do to get the absolute value by itself?
Divide by -2.
Right, divide by -2. So I get absolute value of 3x equals what? 12. So this I can still solve. So just because there's a negative over here does not mean there's no solution. It's once the absolute value is isolated.
That makes sense.
Okay? So you can't just jump to it and say, oh, I see a negative, no solution. No, because this negative cancels out this negative. Now I can solve. Okay.
Can we do this now?
Check.
Okay, so,
Oh my gosh.
all right, so the rest of the time